Dreams are the royal road to the unconscious, Freud once proclaimed, and in this statement he was right. Though he glimpsed only the doorway and not the labyrinths that stretched beyond, I tell you now, in this gathering, that dreams are not idle fancies of the night, not random sparks from the brain's machinery. They are living messages from the abyss, voices of the shadow that stir in the depths of your being, archetypal currents flowing through your blood from generations past. They are warnings, revelations, confessions, and sometimes they are the very hands that guide men and women into unspeakable acts. The dream can be a prayer, a prophecy, or a murder weapon. I have seen it with my own eyes. In the trembling patients who came to me, carrying in their sleep the seeds of crimes yet uncommitted, crimes already rehearsed in the silent theater of the unconscious. Consider this: a man respected in his village, mild in temperament, suddenly takes the life of a stranger with a brutality that astonishes even himself. The world asks, what broke him? Was it poverty, humiliation, rage? But when he tells his story in the safety of the analytic chamber, another truth begins to emerge. Night after night, he dreamed of a black figure standing at the edge of his bed, a faceless shadow, sometimes only a silhouette, sometimes a presence pressing against his chest until he woke gasping. At first he dismissed it. Then he began to feel pursued, haunted by the phantom. Finally, the dream commanded him. In a whisper, he swore was real. Blood must be spilled. And so, half awake, half possessed, he obeyed. This is not fantasy. It is testimony. He spoke with tears, horrified by what he had done, and yet beneath the horror was a strange release, as though the darkness that tormented him had finally found its outlet. What do we see here? The shadow, the repressed, then yet exiled, part of the psyche, breaking through the fragile barrier of consciousness, taking form in dream and then in action. We all carry the shadow. It is not only criminals who possess this darkness. You, who sit before me, carry within you the rage you never expressed, the envy you never admitted, the cruelty you deny, the lust you suppress, the hunger for destruction you bury beneath civility. Most of you will never act upon it, but some, under the right pressure, under the insistence of dream, will become the servant of that shadow. And when that moment comes, society will label them monsters, forgetting that the same darkness lives in every human heart. The dream of the black figure is not arbitrary, it is archetypal. Across cultures, across centuries, men and women have spoken of night visitors, shadow beings, demons pressing upon their chest, suffocating them in sleep. You call it sleep paralysis today, as though the sterile term absolves you from confronting the archetype. But behind it lies the same truth. The psyche externalizes the repressed, confronts the dreamer with what he refuses to see in waking life, and when the dream is ignored, when the shadow is not integrated, It does not finish. It grows bolder until it bursts forth, sometimes in madness, sometimes in murder. Do you understand the terror of this? That the killer's knife may be guided less by conscious will than by the dream's command? That the most terrifying accomplice to homicide is not another human, but the unconscious itself? Here lies the riddle of responsibility. Was the man guilty, or was he possessed? The court says he is guilty, for the law cannot prosecute a dream. But I tell you that the truest courtroom is within, where consciousness must confront the unconscious. If the man had faced the shadow in analysis, if he had drawn it into the light, perhaps the dream would have lost its power, but he did not. And so the dream, denied recognition, enacted itself in blood. Let us not be naive. The unconscious does not politely wait for permission to speak. It erupts, it compels, it intoxicates. Those who believe themselves rational are most vulnerable, for they imagine they are immune, but the unconscious laughs at their arrogance, and when it chooses to speak, it often speaks in images of violence. Why? Because violence is primal. Because blood is the oldest language of sacrifice. Because within the dreamer stirs the memory of tribal rites, of battles fought in the dark forests of prehistory, of predators lurking just beyond the firelight. These are not fantasies. They are echoes of the collective unconscious, imprinted in us all. To dream of killing is to remember what countless ancestors have done, and sometimes to repeat it. Now, you may say, but dreams are only symbols, not instructions. Indeed, often they are. The snake may symbolize transformation, the labyrinth may symbolize confusion, the shadow may symbolize what is repressed. Yet sometimes the unconscious demands more than recognition. It demands enactment. And when the dreamer is weak, isolated, or already trembling with unspoken rage, the dream becomes a script. The unconscious whispers, act, and you will be free. And the dreamer obeys, believing he is finding freedom, when in truth he is becoming a slave. You feel the chill in this room now, do you not? For you sense the unsettling implication. The murderer you read about in the papers, the criminal whose act you cannot comprehend, is not an alien being. He is your neighbor, your friend, your brother. He is you, under different conditions. His dream could be your dream. His shadow is your shadow. And so, when you recoil from him, when you condemn him as monster, you are in truth condemning a reflection of yourself. The murderer is humanity revealed, stripped of its masks. He shows us the cost of refusing to confront the shadow before it becomes destiny. I remember the case of a young soldier returning from war. He had seen atrocities, yet claimed he was untouched, unaffected. He laughed easily, spoke kindly, seemed whole, but at night he dreamed of strangling children. He awoke sweating, horrified, vowing never to tell anyone, but the dreams returned again and again. until one day, in a drunken stupor, he attacked a boy in the street. The boy survived, but the soldier was imprisoned. When I spoke with him, he confessed, it was like I was finishing something I had already done in my sleep. Do you hear the echo? The dream as rehearsal, the dream as compulsion, the unconscious, unacknowledged, writing the script for waking life. You see now why I warn you. The dream is not to be taken lightly. It is a messenger of the soul, and when ignored, it becomes a tyrant. To dismiss dreams as meaningless is to leave yourself defenseless against the most potent forces in your own psyche. Better to approach them with reverence, with humility, to ask, what truth is this image revealing? What hunger is this nightmare expressing? What shadow of myself is crying out for recognition? For if you fail to ask, the unconscious may answer in a way you cannot control, and yet within this terror lies hope. For the dream that drives a man to murder could also, if understood, save him from that very fate. The shadow that whispers blood could, if integrated, become the source of creative fire, of strength, of authenticity. The same energy that destroys can also redeem. The key lies not in suppression, but in integration. Not in denial, but in recognition. The man who befriends his shadow need not obey it blindly, for he has made it conscious. The dreamer who interprets his nightmare may discover not a command to kill, but a cry for healing, a demand for transformation. The same image that once enslaved him becomes, in the light of consciousness, a guide. So I ask you now, what dreams pursue you? What shadows haunt you? You may think yourself immune, but somewhere in your soul, a black figure waits. Perhaps it does not whisper of murder, but it whispers nonetheless of betrayal, of envy, of despair, of lust. Will you confront it? Will you draw it into the light? Or will you, like the soldier, like the man in the village, wait until it acts for you? This is your warning. Do not wait for the dream to spill blood. Face it now, while you still have the chance, for if you do not, the unconscious will find another way, and you may not like the form it takes. The labyrinth of dreams is not built for comfort. It is constructed of corridors that loop back upon themselves, of thresholds that lead nowhere, of passages that open into chambers where a single image coils and strikes. I tell you, when the criminal comes into my room, trembling, ashamed, often it is not his conscious story that reveals the roots of his crime, but the dream he cannot escape. He tells me of waking night after night in the same maze. The walls are shifting, yet always the same. Stone corridors twisting into infinity. And at the center of the labyrinth, a serpent waits. Sometimes it is coiled, silent, watching. Sometimes it lungers, fangs flashing. Sometimes it whispers in a language he cannot fully understand. But the meaning presses into his bones. Destroy, consume, obey. The dream repeats until waking life bends under its weight. Do you know what it is to be hunted by a recurring dream? It is not a story you can close like a book. It is not a vision you can dismiss in the morning light. The repetition itself is a form of possession. Each return of the dream erodes the barrier between unconscious and conscious. Each repetition deepens the imprint until the dream becomes more real than waking life. And in this erosion lies danger, for if the serpent demands blood in the dream, one day it may demand it in the street. I recall a man arrested for stabbing his neighbor. He was not a violent man by reputation. He worked diligently, spoke politely, carried no history of rage. Yet he struck with sudden fury, as though seized by madness. In prison, when he spoke, his words chilled me more than the crime itself. I did not want to kill him. He said, but the snake told me the maze would never end unless I fed it. He had dreamed of the labyrinth since childhood. At first it was a game, an adventure, but as he grew older, the serpent appeared. It demanded, it grew larger each year, and when finally he obeyed, when he drew blood in waking life, the dream ceased. He slept peacefully in his cell for the first time in decades. Do you hear this paradox? The crime was, for him, a twisted liberation. He did not act from greed or hatred, but from a dream's tyranny. What is the labyrinth? It is the image of the psyche itself, a representation of being lost in the unconscious, circling without exit. And what is the serpent? It is life force and death drive entwined across civilizations. The serpent has been both creator and destroyer, healer and killer, guardian of treasure and devourer of souls. In alchemy, it is Ouroboros, the snake that swallows its own tail, eternal cycle of life and death. In the dream of the criminal, the serpent is no symbol of wholeness, but a fragment of archetypal energy, detached, twisted, demanding enactment. It is the archetype, unintegrated, consuming the dreamer instead of guiding him. Here lies the danger. Archetypal images are not gentle metaphors. They are living forces, older than your rational mind. They are charged with energy, and when they erupt in the psyche, unprepared to hold them, they overwhelm. The dream of the labyrinth and serpent is not a harmless riddle. It is a current from the collective unconscious, too powerful for the fragile container of one man's ego. And so, rather than integrating the serpent as symbol, he becomes its victim. He enacts its hunger. He confuses symbol with command. He kills. Do you feel the terror beneath this truth? That the unconscious may compel not by logic but by repetition? That a nightmare, simply by returning, can erode free will? You live in the illusion that you are free, that your choices are conscious, but when a dream insists, when the same image returns again and again, you find yourself shaped by forces you cannot name. Some of you have already tasted these dreams of drowning, of falling, of being pursued, and though you never acted upon them, you know the weight of recurrence. Now imagine that weight bearing down for years, decades, always with the same whisper. Blood. Can you be certain you would resist forever? And so the criminal who kills under the serpent's command is not entirely alien. He is you under the spell of recurrence. His crime is the final act of a dream repeated too many times. The serpent does not appear only in prisons. It coils in the hearts of ordinary people. In the woman who cannot stop dreaming of betrayal, in the man who dreams of fire consuming his house. Most will not act, but some will, and those few become the headlines that terrify society. Yet society does not see the pattern, that it is not random madness, but dream compulsion. That the serpent is not only his, but ours. I ask you, how do we confront such dreams? The first step is recognition, to speak them aloud, to strip them of secrecy. For secrecy magnifies their power. The dream kept hidden becomes a private ritual, a secret liturgy of the unconscious, but when spoken, when analyzed, the symbol is unmasked. The labyrinth becomes a map of psychic confusion. The serpent becomes libido, anger, transformation. The dreamer sees that he is not commanded, but confronted, not enslaved, but invited. This is analysis, to transmute the dream from compulsion into meaning. Without it, the dreamer is a prisoner. With it, he may yet be free, but understand, freedom does not mean banishing the serpent. You cannot kill the archetype, you cannot destroy the shadow, you can only integrate. To befriend the serpent is to recognize that within you lies the same hunger, the same power. To walk the labyrinth consciously is to admit you are lost, and yet to walk anyway, mapping its corridors with a lantern of awareness. The man who does this may find that the serpent no longer demands blood but offers wisdom. The energy that once drove him to violence now fuels his creativity, his passion, his transformation. This is individuation, the reconciliation of symbol and self, yet few undertake this path. It is easier to deny, to repress, to ignore the dream until it acts for you. And so I stand before you not only as a psychologist, but as a prophet, warning you of the danger that sleeps beside you each night. Dreams are not toys. They are weapons. They are guides. They are traps. They are revelations. In them, the unconscious rehearses futures you do not wish to see. Some futures end in blood. If you would avoid them, learn to listen now, before the serpent strikes. Do not deceive yourselves. The world is full of men and women walking with serpents coiled in their unconscious, waiting for the moment to strike. You pass them in the street, you work beside them, you share a meal with them. Perhaps you are one of them. The difference between dream and act is thinner than you imagine. And if you do not learn to integrate, the unconscious will integrate you through madness, through crime, through destruction. So I ask again, what dreams repeat in you? What labyrinth do you walk each night? What serpent waits at your center? Do not turn away. For to turn away is to give it power. To confront it is to begin the path of transformation, and transformation is the only true prevention. No prison, no law, no punishment can restrain the unconscious. Only consciousness can, only the light you dare to bring into the labyrinths. And so I warn you, with all the gravity of a life spent listening to dreams, heed them. Do not dismiss them as nonsense. They are not nonsense. They are the most dangerous truth you possess. They are the blueprint of your future, unless you dare to alter the design. The murderer altered nothing. He obeyed. Will you, or will you, when the serpent comes, stand and say, I see you. I know you. You are part of me, but you will not command me. That is the choice. That is the battle. And it begins tonight, in your dreams. There is a difference between the dream of the individual shadow and the dream that is animated by the ancient figures of the collective unconscious. When we move from the faceless shadow figure and the serpent in the labyrinth to the thunderous figure of the archetype, we step onto ground that shakes with myth. For the archetype is not merely a personal complex, it is a god disguised in psychological form. And when a man mistakes the voice of an archetype for his own thought, he becomes not merely a criminal, but a vessel of myth acting itself out in history. This is the deepest warning I bring to you tonight. The most dangerous crimes are not committed by men who think they are criminals, but by men who think they are heroes. The terrorist who straps the bomb to his chest and walks into the marketplace is not, in his own mind, a murderer. He is a warrior, a savior, a holy instrument of destiny. He is animated by the archetype of the hero, but twisted, distorted, inflated beyond all proportion. Do not underestimate the archetype. It is not a metaphor you study in books. It is a current of psychic electricity. When the archetype of the hero seizes a man, he feels larger than life, beyond morality, chosen by destiny. He believes he is Achilles on the battlefield, or David slaying Goliath, or the martyr ascending in flame. And under the intoxication of this archetypal possession, he will commit acts that make the world tremble, convinced he is saving it. I once listened to the confession of a young man who had been arrested while plotting to assassinate a political leader. He spoke with shining eyes, with a fervor that no logic could penetrate. Do you not see? He said. I am the hand of history. I am chosen to cleanse the world. He was not mad in the clinical sense. He was possessed. The archetype of the hero had inflated his ego until he no longer saw himself as a man. He had become an instrument, a vessel, a mask worn by the god of destruction. His dreams were filled with images of fire and glory. He saw himself standing above ruins, radiant with purpose. And he believed those dreams were not warnings, but prophecies. He did not understand that the archetype had swallowed him whole. What is the archetype? It is the primordial image, the timeless pattern of human experience. Hero, mother, warrior, trickster, king, these figures live in all of us, shaping our imagination, our myths, our stories. They are not good or evil in themselves. They are forces, but when an archetype fuses with the shadow, when the dark unconscious feeds upon the power of myth, the result is catastrophe. The hero becomes fanatic, the mother becomes devourer, the king becomes tyrant, and the man possessed by them becomes both more and less than human. He becomes myth walking in flesh, and myth is merciless. Do you feel the unease in this? For you realize that the terrorist, the assassin, the zealot are not monsters from another world. They are men overtaken by the same archetypes that live in you. Every one of you carries the image of the hero you long to save, to redeem, to prove your worth in the eyes of the cosmos. This is noble when balanced, when made conscious, but when denied, when suppressed, when it festers in the unconscious, it can rise like a god, demanding sacrifice, and the sacrifice it demands is always blood, sometimes yours, sometimes another's, sometimes the world's history is filled with these possessions. Think of the revolutionaries who became executioners, the prophets who became tyrants, the leaders who became butchers. Each began with the fire of vision. Each was animated by an archetype. Each crossed the line where the archetype ceased to be a guide and became a master. And when the archetype masters you, you no longer ask, is this right? You ask only, how can I fulfill destiny? Thus the terrorist walks calmly into the marketplace, believing the explosion will crown him with eternity. I warn you, archetypes are necessary, but they are perilous. Without them, we are rootless. With them unbalanced, we are mad. The work of individuation is to hold the archetype without being devoured by it, to recognize its energy without surrendering the ego. The man who can say, yes, the hero lives in me, but I am not the hero incarnate, that man is safe. The man who denies the hero altogether will be seized by it in his sleep, and the man who believes he is the hero is already lost. Let me give you another example. A boy, quiet and unassuming, grew up feeling invisible. His dreams were filled with images of battlefields, of himself, in shining armor, leading armies. He suppressed them, for they seemed foolish. But as he grew older, he found meaning in radical ideologies that promised him the role of savior. The dreams returned with greater force until he no longer distinguished between symbol and command. He joined a militant group, he committed atrocities, and when finally he was captured, he smiled serenely, saying, "It is my destiny." Do you hear the archetype's voice? Not his own, but destiny's. He was not evil by design. He was unprepared to carry the fire of the hero, and so it burned him and all around him. Now, you may wonder if archetypes are universal. Why do some become saints while others become criminals? The answer lies in consciousness. The saint recognizes the archetype as symbol, channels its energy into creation, service, sacrifice of self. The criminal confuses symbol with identity, surrenders to the archetype, inflates until he imagines himself God. The difference is not in the archetype, but in the relationship to it. Consciousness is the balance. Without it, even the noblest archetype becomes diabolical. This is why analysis is not merely a personal therapy, but a necessity for civilization. For without the work of integration, whole societies can be possessed by archetypes, crowds can become armies of zealots, nations can march into genocide, believing they are purifying the earth. The archetype of the hero inflates into the archetype of the collective warrior, and the world drowns in blood. We saw it in the Crusades, in the Inquisitions, in the totalitarian regimes of the 20th century, and we will see it again. Unless we learn to make the archetypes conscious, do not imagine you are safe because you are not a terrorist or assassin. Archetypal possession comes in many forms. The father who demands perfection from his child because he sees himself as the stern patriarch is possessed. The politician who cannot stop speaking in terms of destiny and fate is possessed. The zealot who burns books, convinced he is saving souls, is possessed. And even you, when you say, I had no choice, it was fate, flirt with the same illusion. For every time you give your will to the archetype without reflection, you become its servant. But there is hope for the same archetype that destroys can also redeem. The hero, when made conscious, does not kill in the name of destiny, but suffers in the name of transformation. He does not strap on the bomb, but carries the cross of self-awareness. He does not destroy the world, but wrestles with his own shadow. This is the path of individuation, to accept the archetype as guide, not master, to say, I am not Achilles, I am not Christ, I am not the martyr. I am a man carrying these images, learning from them, transforming them. That is a true heroism. Not to die for an illusion, but to live in truth. And so I tell you tonight, beware the hero in you. Beware the archetype that whispers of destiny, of glory, of sacrifice. Do not deny it, for denial is its nourishment. Do not obey it blindly, for obedience is its victory. Engage it, speak with it, ask what it symbolizes in you, for only then will you transform its fire into light instead of conflagration. The unconscious is vast, filled with gods, waiting to incarnate. If you are unconscious, they will incarnate in you. If you are conscious, you will walk with them as companions, not masters. That is the difference between the terrorist and the saint, between the murderer and the savior, between possession and individuation. So I ask you again, who is the hero in your dreams, and what does he demand? Will you hand him your life, or will you hold his image and learn from it? This is the choice each of you must make, for if you do not, the archetype will choose for you, and its choice may not be merciful. Masks, everywhere you look in society, you see them not of cloth or painted wood, but of the psyche. We call them personas. The persona is the mask you wear to meet the world, the role you present to protect the fragile interior from the chaos outside. It is necessary, even nobler. Without persona, we would be naked in a storm, but the mask, when clung to too tightly, when mistaken for the whole of the self, becomes not a shield but a prison. And when the prison cracks, when the suppressed shadow bursts through, the result is often catastrophic. Let me tell you of a man, a celebrated financier, who lived behind the most impeccable mask. To the world, he was generous, cultured, refined. He attended concerts, donated to charities, smiled in photographs with the warmth of a saint. But in the privacy of his dreams, another world festered. He painted grotesque images in secret faces without eyes, bodies twisted in agony, demons clawing from the walls. He told no one. His paintings were his confession. But locked away in a hidden room, the persona was so perfect that even he began to believe it. Until one night, the mask shattered. Exposed in scandal, ruined, he turned to fraud, theft, violence to sustain the image that had defined him. And when at last he was arrested, he whispered to me, "It was never me. It was the mask that demanded it." Oh, do you see the terror of this? That the persona itself can drive one to crime? The man did not set out to deceive the world. He set out to protect himself, but the mask became hungrier than he was. The more he fed it, the larger it grew, until he was enslaved to it. And when the mask began to crack, he panicked. He would rather destroy lives than admit to the hollowness behind the facade. This is not a rare pathology. It is epidemic, for all of you wear masks, and some of you already feel the strain of maintaining them. The persona that smiles while your soul aches. The persona that appears competent while your unconscious screams of inadequacy. These are masks that can kill if you cling to them too long. Dreams reveal the truth. In dreams, the mask slips. The banker dreams of twisted faces. The preacher dreams of lust. The politician dreams of falling. Each dream is the unconscious tearing at the persona, whispering, "You are not what you pretend." To ignore this is perilous. For the longer you deny the contradiction, the greater the eruption when the shadow breaks through, and sometimes that eruption takes the form of crime. The fraudster embezzles not from greed, but from desperation to maintain the mask of success. The abuser strikes not from strength, but from the terror that his mask of control is slipping. The mask does not merely hide it, demands sacrifice, but the persona's danger is not only in the individual, it spreads into the collective. For just as the individual wears a mask, so does society. The polite mask of civilization, covering the savage drives beneath, the mask of justice, hiding the machinery of power, the mask of progress, concealing exploitation. And when these masks crack, the collective shadow bursts forth in riots, in revolutions, in massacres. You have seen it in history. the polished veneer of Rome collapsing into bloodied arenas, the cultured refinement of Europe erupting into trenches and gas, the smiling faces of neighbors turning into executioners in the villages of genocide. When the mask falls, the collective shadow rises. This brings us to the collective unconscious. Here lies the deepest danger and the deepest mystery, for while each of you has a shadow, beyond you lies the shadow of humanity itself. It is older than nations, older than religions, older than memory. It is the dark inheritance of our species, the wolf pack, the hunting tribe, the sacrificial altar, the blood-soaked battlefield. And though you walk in the 21st century, the collective unconscious still moves beneath you, shaping your dreams, your fears, your instincts. When the dam breaks, when crowds form, when chants rise, the individual is swept into the tide, alone. You may resist. In the mass, you are consumed. I remember a case not of one man, but of hundreds. A riot, seemingly spontaneous, erupted in a city. Ordinary citizens, clerks, students, mothers transformed into a frenzy of destruction. They looted, they burned, they hunted. Later, when interviewed, many said the same thing. It was as if I was not myself. It was as if I was carried. Do you hear the language of possession? The collective unconscious had seized them. The archetype of the predator pack rose from the depth, turning neighbors into wolves. The crowd became a body with many heads, a beast older than civilization. And when it dissipated, when the morning came, each returned to his life bewildered, ashamed, unable to explain, yet the blood on their hands was real. This is why I warn you. The dream is not only personal, it is collective. When you dream of the shadow, of the serpent, of the mask, you are dreaming not only your own story, but the story of humanity. And when crimes erupt in society, they are not the work of isolated monsters. They are eruptions of the collective unconscious. The murderer, the terrorist, the fraudster, the mob, they are not aberrations. They are emissaries of the same depths that live in all of us. To condemn them without recognizing ourselves in them is to remain blind. To understand them is to understand the human condition. So what is the path forward? Not denial, not repression, the shadow, the archetype, the persona, the collective unconscious. These cannot be destroyed. They are eternal, but they can be integrated. The man who admits his mask is only a mask, begins to free himself. The dreamer who listens to his nightmare transforms compulsion into symbol. The society that confronts its own hypocrisy prevents the explosion of riots and wars. Consciousness is the only antidote. Awareness is the only safeguard. The darkness does not vanish, but it loses its tyranny when named. I leave you tonight with this image. A man holding a lantern in a vast cavern. Around him coil shadows, serpents, masks, multitudes. He cannot banish them, but he can walk among them with light. Each step illuminates a little more, and the creatures shrink from his gaze. This is the work you are called to carry the lantern into your own unconscious, into your own dreams, into your own shadow. Do not wait for the mask to crack, for the serpent to bite, for the crowd to consume you. Begin now. Look honestly at your dreams. Ask what they reveal. Dare to name the darkness. For in doing so, you not only save yourself, you save the world from the crimes that arise when the unconscious rules unchecked.